The outpost bar rotated slowly with the artificial gravity ring, and the rotation made everyone feel slightly heroic, even if they were only holding drinks. Conversations overlapped in 6 languages and 3 pheromone dialects. Trade negotiations happened in corners. A holographic jukebox projected a rotating nebula that pulsed in time with the bass. In the center of it all stood Karth Vaylor, armored in layered alloy plates that gleamed under the shifting lights. He raised his glass high enough to block someone's satellite call and laughed loudly enough to interrupt a navigation briefing. "I've hunted on 12 worlds," he announced, voice amplified slightly by habit rather than necessity. But nothing was easier than the humans. Fragile bones, overheated quickly, dramatic to the end. A few beings nearby made polite sounds of interest. One insectoid merchant clacked his mandibles in what might have been applause or indigestion. Karth continued, encouraged. "They call their planet a Deathworld." He scoffed. "If that is death, I'd hate to see discomfort." Laughter rolled through a portion of the crowd. It was the safe kind of laughter, the kind that follows confidence, not truth. Near the edge of the gathering stood a woman who looked human at first glance. Dark jacket, steady posture, hands relaxed at her sides. Only her ears gave her away, long, elegant, tapering slightly past her jaw, shifting subtly as if they were listening to more than sound. She did not laugh. Karth noticed her stillness and mistook it for admiration. He turned slightly, angling his armor so the light caught it just right. "You there," he called. "You've seen humans, haven't you? Tell them how they scatter." Her gaze lifted to him calmly. "Which ones?" she asked. The question was simple. It did not rise in volume. It did not carry threat. It merely waited. Karth grinned. "All of them. They break the same." A nearby human dockworker coughed into his drink. "We do complain loudly," he offered helpfully. "Very intimidating." A few chuckles rippled outward. The woman's long ears tilted slightly forward. "Which gravity did you fight them under?" she asked. Karth blinked once. "Standard military engagement gravity." "So," she replied, "not Earth." The dockworker winced. "Oh, he walked into that one." Karth's smile thinned. "Gravity is irrelevant. Combat skill determines outcome." She nodded once. "On my colony, gravity averages 1.3 standard. Storm cycles exceed safe atmospheric thresholds. Predators hunt in packs and occasionally in committees." A small alien with translucent skin leaned toward a companion. "Predators forming committees sounds bureaucratically terrifying." Karth folded his arms. "You exaggerate." "I simplify," she said gently. "Humans settled there with us. Supply drops failed twice in the first year. We learned quickly that stories do not build shelter." The dockworker raised his glass. "Correct, duct tape does." A ripple of laughter softened the air again. Karth stepped closer, metal boots heavy against the deck plating. "You claim humans survive Deathworld conditions." "I claim they adapt," she answered, slowly, loudly, sometimes while arguing, but they adapt. The jukebox shifted tracks. The nebula projection flickered red for a moment, as if sensing the rising temperature of conversation. Karth leaned down slightly, studying her. "You are not human." "No, but you defend them." "I correct you," she said. "Defense implies they require it." Someone in the back muttered, "She's not wrong." Karth straightened. "I defeated a squad on Keres Drift. They retreated." "Retreat is a tactic," the dockworker said helpfully. "We love tactics." Karth ignored him. "They were slower, weaker." "Under what gravity?" she asked again. He hesitated a fraction too long. Her ears shifted, catching that pause like a hook. "You fought them off-world," she said, "under your preferred conditions." "That is how war works," he snapped. "Convenient," she replied. The word landed lightly, but it stayed. Around them the bar had grown quieter. Conversations lowered to whispers. Even the insectoid merchant stopped clacking. Karth's jaw tightened. "Are you challenging me?" She considered the question with visible thoughtfulness. "No," she said. "I am evaluating your data." A laugh burst from the dockworker before he could stop it. "He's data now." Karth shot him a glare that could have melted softer metals. Then he looked back at her. You think humans are strong? I think environment shapes outcome, she said. Place you on my colony for one cycle, then we discuss fragility. Is that an invitation? He asked. It is an offer of perspective. He scoffed. You speak as if you trained with them. I did, she answered simply. Silence tightened. He said, you train beside humans. Her lips curved faintly. Fell beside them, got up beside them, argued beside them, yes. The dockworker nodded solemnly. Arguing is critical conditioning. Karth gestured at her ears. You are not built like them. Neither is the colony, she replied. Yet we survived. His pride flared visibly now. If you stand with them, then stand for them. She tilted her head slightly. You require demonstration. I require proof. She glanced around at the hovering security drones near the ceiling. They adjusted position slightly, as if stretching before a performance. I prefer restraint, she said, but I dislike misinformation. The dockworker whispered, this is where it gets educational. Karth rolled his shoulders, armor plates sliding into alignment with a soft mechanical hiss. No lethal force, he said, half to her, half to the drones. Agreed, she replied. The bar patron stepped back, clearing space in the center. Someone turned down the music. The rotating nebula projection dimmed to a low crimson glow. Karth planted his feet confidently. I will not go easy on you. I would be disappointed if you did, she said. For the first time, a hint of anticipation sparked in her eyes. Not anger, not aggression, something steadier. The dockworker raised his glass again. To educational experiences, he declared softly. Karth lunged forward with theatrical speed, confident and powerful. She did not move immediately. Her ears shifted first, and the room held its breath. The outpost called Meridian Spindle rotated with the slow dignity of something that believed itself important. Its central concourse was crowded with traders, mercenaries, tourists, and beings who claimed to be none of those things. Above the noise floated a holographic banner, advertising reduced docking fees and gravity calibrated to comfort. Karth Vaylor stood beneath. That banner like it had been installed in his honor. I'm telling you, he said loudly, one armored hand wrapped around a carbon glass mug, humans are overrated. All that Deathworld mythology, dramatic weather, dramatic gravity, dramatic speeches, when you actually fight them, they bruise like everyone else. A cluster of listeners leaned in. Some were curious, some were bored. One tall amphibious envoy blinked sideways and murmured, bruising is generally how flesh works. Karth ignored him. Carace drift. Border campaign. They charged like heroes from their own propaganda feeds. 2 minutes later, retreat. A human cargo pilot at the edge of the group raised a finger. Strategic withdrawal, she corrected mildly. We like to rebrand. A few chuckles slipped through the crowd. Karth grinned. Call it whatever helps you sleep in low gravity. Near a column where the gravity gradient shifted half a decimal higher stood a woman who looked almost human. Almost. Her posture was relaxed, boots steady against the deck, dark hair pulled back, calm eyes, and long ears that tapered past her jaw, moving subtly as voices rose and fell. She listened. Karth noticed her stillness. He mistook it for admiration. You, he called. You've seen them, you know what I mean. She met his gaze. Which humans? The question cut cleaner than a blade. Karth laughed. All of them, they're soft. The cargo pilot coughed. We prefer biologically flexible. A ripple of laughter softened the edge again. The woman stepped slightly forward. The gravity near the column was set to 1.1 standard. Most visitors unconsciously shifted their weight there. She did not. Where did you fight them? She asked. Carace drift, he repeated. Asteroid theater, variable gravity. Variable in whose favor? In favor of victory, he said. That is not a unit of measurement, she replied. Someone behind her snorted. Karth's smile thinned. You doubt my record. I question your conclusions. He set his mug down harder than necessary. Humans claim Earth is a death world. Storms, predators, heavy gravity, yet when removed from their mud and rain they fold. The woman tilted her head slightly, her long ears angled forward as if tasting the air. I was raised on a colony classified above Earth. A murmur passed through the listeners. Classified as what? Asked the amphibious envoy. Non-compliant, she answered. High gravity, seasonal electromagnetic storms, native fauna that consider diplomacy a garnish. A small reptilian trader blinked. That sounds inconvenient. It was, she agreed. Karth crossed his arms. And humans lived there. They argued there, she said, which is similar. The cargo pilot laughed outright. Accurate. Karth gestured at her. You are not human. No, but you defend them. I correct you, she said calmly. Defense suggests weakness. He stepped closer. The deck hummed faintly under his armor's weight. You think they're strong. I think gravity is honest, she replied. It reveals assumptions. The amphibious envoy leaned toward the reptilian trader. I enjoy when gravity becomes philosophical. Karth's voice dropped. I defeated a human squad. How many cycles had they trained in that gravity? She asked. He hesitated. Her ears shifted, catching that pause like a signal spike. You fought them off-world, she continued. Reduced gravity, controlled climate. That is standard engagement protocol. Convenient protocol, she said. The cargo pilot raised her mug. We are inconveniently persistent. It confuses people. Karth exhaled sharply. You talk like you trained beside them. I did. A few heads turned more fully toward her now. On that colony, the envoy asked. Yes. And you survived. Obviously. A flicker of humor passed through her eyes. Karth shook his head. Stories. Adaptation, she corrected. First year, supply ships failed twice. We learned to ration oxygen filters and pride. The reptilian trader hissed softly. Pride is rarely rationed. It should be, she said. A faint laugh circled the group. Karth flexed his fingers, servos in his gauntlet's word. If humans are so formidable, why do they boast so much? Because they are afraid, the cargo pilot said cheerfully. And because it's fun. The woman nodded slightly. They boast, then they build, then they endure. Karth leaned down toward her. And you endured. Yes. In higher gravity. Yes. Without folding. I fell often, she said. Folding wastes time. The amphibious envoy covered a smile. Karth straightened. You imply my victory was environmental. I imply context matters. He glanced around at the growing audience. Even a pair of station security drones drifted closer, optics glowing faint blue. Are you challenging me? He asked. No, she said. I am offering perspective. Demonstrate it. She regarded him for a moment, measuring something unspoken. This is a trade outpost, she said, not a battlefield. He spread his arms. Then consider it an educational exhibit. The cargo pilot muttered, I love field trips. The woman stepped away from the gravity column and into the center of the concourse. The ambient gravity there held steady at standard. She rolled her shoulders once, slow and easy. No lethal force, she said. Agreed, Karth replied quickly. The drones brightened, scanning. A circle formed without being requested. Conversations in the distance faded to whispers. Karth planted his boots. I will not underestimate you. That would be a refreshing change, she said. A soft wave of laughter broke the tension again. He lunged forward with practiced speed, armor assisting the motion. It was clean, direct, confident. She did not counter immediately. Her ears moved first, angling toward him as if listening to the shift of air around his strike. Then she stepped aside. His momentum carried him half a pace too far, not enough to fall, enough to notice. A quiet murmur spread through the crowd. He pivoted quickly, pride stung more than balance. She stood exactly where she needed to be. Variable gravity, she said softly, even here. He attacked again faster. And this time the lesson truly began. Karth's second strike came faster, powered by the servos in his armor. The air hummed as his gauntlet cut forward. She leaned back just enough to let it pass. Your left actuator lags, she said conversationally. It does not, he snapped, pivoting into a sweeping kick. She stepped inside the arc before the kick reached full extension and tapped the side of his knee joint. Not hard, precise. The armor compensated with a sharp mechanical whine. His balance shifted half a degree. A murmur rolled through the circle. Meridian gravity is 1.02, she continued. Your armor calibrates for 1.0. You're fighting the station. I'm fighting you. You brought the station with you. The cargo pilot raised her voice from the edge. He paid docking fees. It's allowed. A few laughs broke the tension again. Karth adjusted his stance, widening it. Enough commentary. He lunged, feinting high before driving low with his shoulder. The move would have shattered ribs on a lighter opponent. She pivoted, redirected his momentum with both hands against his upper plate, and let his own force carry him 2 steps past her. He caught himself before falling, boots grinding against the deck. You run well, he said through clenched teeth. I conserve energy, she replied. High gravity discourages unnecessary heroics. He spun and activated a short-range kinetic pulse from his forearm. The shockwave rippled outward, rattling cups and drawing a startled curse from someone in the back. She dropped low as it passed overhead. The security drones brightened but did not intervene. Non-lethal, Karth said quickly. I assumed, she answered, rising smoothly. He advanced again, this time mixing speed with unpredictability. Strike, retract, elbow, pivot. The armor assisted every motion with brutal efficiency. She met each movement with minimal response. A shift of weight, a redirection, a brief contact that altered trajectory without meeting force directly. You're not stronger, he growled. No, then fight. I am. The reptilian traitor whispered to the envoy. Is this what humans call letting someone tire themselves out? Yes, the envoy murmured. It appears educational. Karth increased power output. The servos in his armor glowed faintly as he drove forward with a rapid combination meant to overwhelm. She stepped back once, twice. On the third strike she caught his wrist and twisted, not to break, but to redirect. His own force spun him sideways. He stumbled a full step this time. A ripple of surprise spread through the crowd. You rely heavily on augmentation, she said. On my colony, augmentations failed in electromagnetic storms. I do not depend on them, he snapped. She tilted her head slightly, then disengaged them. Laughter burst from the cargo pilot before she could stop it. Karth's jaw tightened. You think I need assistance to defeat you? I think you are unsure. He hesitated. The hesitation lasted less than a second, but her ears flicked as if catching a distant signal. With a sharp motion, he deactivated the external servo boost. The faint glow dimmed. The hum softened. There, he said, satisfied. For now, he attacked again. This time his movements were heavier, less artificially smooth. Real muscle carried the strikes. Real balance adjusted to gravity without mechanical correction. She met him more directly now. When his fist came forward, she blocked rather than avoided. The impact echoed through the concourse. He blinked, surprised at the solidity of her defense. 1.3 standard, she said softly. That was average morning gravity. He tried a sweeping maneuver designed to unbalance. She did not move back. Instead, she stepped into him, shoulder to chest, and used her hip as leverage. The world tilted for him. He hit the deck on one knee, armor ringing against metal. The crowd inhaled as one. She stepped back immediately, giving him space to rise. He did, slower this time. You could have broken that joint, he said quietly. Yes. Why didn't you? Because this is a lesson, not an execution. A beat of silence passed. The amphibious envoy nodded thoughtfully. I prefer lessons. Karth rolled his shoulders, testing his knee. Again. She inclined her head. They closed distance more cautiously now. His strikes were tighter, less theatrical. Her responses grew slightly firmer. He managed to catch her forearm once, gripping tightly. For a moment they stood locked together, strength against strength. You're lighter, he said, Density compensates, she replied. He pushed, trying to overpower. She shifted her center of gravity lower, letting the station's pull anchor her. Slowly, subtly, his arm began to tremble under strain. He exhaled sharply and broke contact before his muscles betrayed him. The cargo pilot whistled. Gravity's honest, remember. Karth ignored her. He feinted high again, then drove low with a genuine attempt to sweep her legs. This time she jumped, twisting midair in a movement that seemed almost leisurely. She landed behind him. Before he could turn, she tapped the back of his shoulder joint. "Open seam," she said. He froze. The drones pulsed brighter, recognizing a vulnerable point. She stepped away again, hands open at her sides. "I am not human," she said, her voice steady, "but I was shaped beside them. We trained under storms that knocked out power grids. We sparred in mud thick enough to swallow boots. We learned to fight when tired because tired was constant." He turned slowly to face her. "You think I am weak," he said. "I think you miscalculated." A faint smile tugged at the cargo pilot's mouth. "That's worse." Karth looked around the circle. No one laughed now. They watched. He deactivated the remainder of his armor's assistance completely. The plates remained, but the subtle enhancements went dark. "Final exchange," he said. She nodded once. They moved at the same time. This time when their arms met, the sound rang clear and unassisted. No hum of servos. No artificial correction. Just impact and adjustment. He pressed hard, pushing forward with genuine force. She gave ground deliberately, then pivoted sharply, using his forward momentum. The deck rose to meet him again. He landed flat on his back, armor reverberating against metal. Silence settled over the concourse. She stood over him, not gloating, not triumphant, just steady. After a moment, she extended her hand. He stared at it. From the edge of the circle, the cargo pilot called out, "Strategic withdrawal is still an option." A reluctant huff of laughter escaped someone. Karth looked from the offered hand to her calm face, to the crowd that no longer seemed convinced by his earlier boasts. He grasped her hand. She pulled him up without strain. The lesson was not finished, but the room had already begun to reconsider what it thought it knew. Karth did not release her hand immediately. The circle remained unbroken. The security drones hovered in patient silence. "You fight like them," he said at last. "I fight like myself," she replied. "It only resembles them under pressure." He pulled his hand back slowly. "You anticipated my momentum. You broadcast it. I did not. Your shoulders rise before you commit." The cargo pilot lifted her drink again. "She's giving free coaching. This is premium content." A thin ripple of laughter circled outward. Karth flexed his fingers, recalibrating his stance. "You rely on redirection. You avoid direct force." "Direct force is expensive," she said. "Energy conservation extends survival windows. You speak like a tactician. I speak like someone who has run out of oxygen twice." That silenced the cargo pilot for half a second. Karth studied her more carefully now. "Your colony," he said. "Name it. Classified. Convenient. Survival often is." He exhaled slowly. "You claim gravity forged you." "It corrected me," she said. The amphibious envoy tilted his head. "Corrected. I arrived assuming I understood balance," she replied. The colony disagreed. Karth rolled his shoulders once more. "You are not stronger than me." "No." "Then how?" "Adaptation velocity." He frowned. "You adjust to conditions slowly," she continued. "Humans adjust quickly because their environment rarely negotiates." The reptilian trader hissed in mild amusement. "Negotiating with storm sounds unproductive." "It is," she agreed. Karth stepped back 2 paces, increasing distance. "Again, you seem determined. You seem patient. Patience is cheaper than pride." A few beings near the back chuckled nervously. He moved first this time without warning, covering the distance with controlled speed. No theatrical flourish, just clean aggression. She met him squarely. Their forearms collided. This time she did not fully redirect. She absorbed part of the force, then shifted it downward through her stance. He felt the resistance differently now. "You anchor," he muttered. "Yes. In standard gravity. 1.3 is standard for me." He attempted a high feint followed by a rapid spin meant to disorient. She did not chase the spin. She stepped into the space he would occupy after it. When he completed the rotation, she was already there. "You predict," he said through clenched teeth. "I observe." The cargo pilot called out, "He's buffering." The crowd laughed louder this time, tension thinning like mist. Karth tried a different tactic. He retreated suddenly instead of advancing, forcing her to choose between pursuit and reset. She did not pursue, she waited. "Why don't you press advantage?" he demanded. "You are more dangerous cornered," she replied. "Also, I am not angry." He paused. "You should be," he said. "Why, I insulted your allies." She shrugged slightly. "Humans insult each other recreationally." The cargo pilot raised a hand. "Confirmed." Karth blinked once. "They do not resent you training beside them. They resented my cooking." A small burst of laughter broke through the circle again. He circled now, testing footwork. Without servo assistance, his movements were heavier but more authentic. She mirrored his pace. "You have not told me your name," he said. "You have not asked." "Very well, your name." Lyra, just Karth." The reptilian trader hissed approvingly. "Point." Karth's lips twitched despite himself. "Lyra, then, you speak of adaptation, but you are not human. Why defend them?" "I do not defend them," she said. "I object to incomplete narratives. You claim I exaggerate. You omit context." He lunged again, this time committing fully to a grappling hold meant to overpower through leverage. She allowed contact for a fraction of a second longer than before. He thought he had advantage. Then she shifted her weight abruptly, hooking his ankle with hers while pressing upward at his elbow. The motion was clean. He hit the deck again, this time flat and unmistakable. The concourse erupted into surprised noise. Lyra stepped back immediately. "You could end it," he said from the floor. "Yes. Why don't you?" "Because ending it proves nothing." He stared at the ceiling lights. "Humans would boast. Yes. And you?" "I would prefer they not." The cargo pilot leaned forward. "We're working on it." Karth rolled onto one side and pushed himself upright. He was breathing harder now. "You train often?" he asked. "Daily. For combat, for survival." He nodded slowly. "You believe I would not survive your colony. I believe you would complain first." A wave of laughter surged again. "And then," he pressed. "And then you would adapt," she said calmly. He hesitated. "You think so?" "Yes. After what I said, gravity does not care what you say." Silence followed that. The security drones dimmed slightly, recalibrating threat levels downward. Karth looked around the circle. The crowd no longer leaned toward him. They leaned toward her, not in adoration, in recognition. "You humiliated me," he said quietly. "I corrected you publicly," she replied. "You humiliated yourself." A soft collective intake of breath followed. He did not lash out. Instead, he asked, "If I had fought you under 1.3, you would have fallen sooner. And if you fought me in low gravity, I would fall first," she said without hesitation. That surprised him more than the impact. "You admit that?" "Of course. Why?" "Because adaptation is environment-specific." The amphibious envoy nodded deeply. "Context, always context." Karth wiped sweat from his brow. "Then this proves nothing universal." "It proves something local," she said. "What?" "That your conclusion was incomplete." He studied her face for mockery. There was none. "Final question," he said. "Do humans know you speak like this?" "They ignore me until proven correct." The cargo pilot laughed so loudly she nearly dropped her mug. Karth exhaled, tension draining slowly from his shoulders. "You are not what I expected." "I rarely am." He looked at his hands, then back at her. "You trained beside them," he repeated. "Yes." "You endured storms." "Yes." "You fought predators." "Yes." He gave a short, incredulous laugh. And you argue like them. She smiled faintly. That is the most dangerous skill. The circle relaxed visibly. Karth extended his hand again. This time, he said, not as opponent. Lyra regarded it for a moment, then she took it. Around them, conversation began to resume. But the tone had shifted. Not louder, not triumphant, just recalibrated. Karth did not step away after the handshake. Instead, he said, "You claimed context matters, then let us adjust context." Lyra tilted her head. "Clarify." He gestured upward toward the gravity control grid embedded in the concourse ceiling. Meridian spindle allows temporary calibration shifts for demonstration events. I have clearance. The cargo pilot blinked. "You're escalating to physics." "Controlled physics," Karth replied. One of the hovering security drones pulsed amber. "Temporary gravity modification requires majority consent in a public zone." The amphibious envoy lifted a webbed hand. "I consent to educational physics," the reptilian trader hissed. "As long as beverages remain stable." A wave of amused murmurs followed. Lyra watched Karth carefully. "What setting?" 1.3, he said. The crowd reacted audibly. The cargo pilot raised both brows. "Oh, now we're nostalgic." Lyra's long ears angled slightly outward. "You understand most species here are not conditioned for that." "Localized field," Karth replied. 10-meter radius." The drone processed for a moment. "Request approved. Safety dampeners active." A low hum filled the air. The deck beneath them seemed to grow heavier without visibly changing. Several spectators instinctively adjusted posture. The cargo pilot bent her knees. "Oh good, my spine remembers this." Karth inhaled once as the new gravity settled onto him like an honest weight. Lyra did not move. He noticed. "You're comfortable," he said. "I am awake," she replied. He stepped forward slowly this time, no sudden lunges. The extra pull of gravity altered timing, altered balance, altered breath. He felt it immediately in his calves. She saw it. "Different?" she asked. "Yes," he admitted. The reptilian trader muttered, "I regret consenting." A few strained laughs emerged from the outer ring. Karth moved first again, but more cautiously. His strike carried more mass under the heavier pull, yet his recovery lagged. Lyra met his forearm and did not yield ground. The impact sounded deeper now. He gritted his teeth. "You train daily under this." "Minimum," she replied. He attempted a pivot, but the increased weight slowed the rotation. She stepped inside the arc and pressed against his shoulder joint. He stumbled half a step. "Your center rises when fatigued," she said calmly. "Stop analyzing me aloud. It helps the audience." The cargo pilot wheezed. "It does." Karth drove forward with a grappling attempt, trying to use the gravity to pin her through sheer downward force. Lyra shifted lower than he anticipated. Instead of resisting upward, she angled sideways, letting the pull assist her redirection. His own weight betrayed him. He dropped to one knee again. A collective sound moved through the circle, not mockery this time, but dawning understanding. Karth pushed himself up, breathing harder. "This is your advantage," he said. "Yes. And you admit in low gravity I would have advantage." "Yes." "Then why not choose that earlier?" She paused briefly before answering. "Because your claim was universal." He exhaled sharply. "Humans are weak," he repeated, quieter now. "Under what gravity?" she asked. He almost smiled. "Point," he said. The drone announced, "Stability holding." "Structural stress within tolerance." The amphibious envoy shifted uncomfortably. "Educational physics is exhausting." Karth squared his stance again. "One more exchange." Lyra nodded. They closed distance once more. This time he did not rush. He watched her shoulders the way she had watched his. He noted the subtle lowering of her center before she committed to motion. He adjusted. His next strike connected cleanly against her guard, pushing her back a full step. The crowd reacted instantly. Lyra's ears flicked once in mild surprise. "You adapt," she said. "I learn," he answered. He pressed advantage, following with controlled, deliberate strikes rather than explosive force. Under heavier gravity, brute speed cost too much. She blocked two, redirected the third, but the fourth forced her to shift wider than before. A faint smile touched her lips. "Better," she said. He attempted the same ankle hook she had used earlier. She saw it coming, but the gravity slowed her counter by a fraction. His shoulder drove forward, and for the first time she lost balance fully. They both hit the deck. Silence. Then overlapping exclamations. The cargo pilot gasped. Plot twist. Karth rolled away immediately, not pressing advantage. Lyra lay still for a breath, then sat up slowly. She looked at him. "You adapted," she repeated. "You predicted I wouldn't," he replied. "I predicted delay." She rose to her feet without assistance. He stood as well. Neither advanced. The drone pulsed again. Gravity field duration nearing limit. Karth lifted a hand slightly. "Deactivate." The hum faded. The weight lifted subtly from everyone's bones. A collective sigh escaped the ring of onlookers. The cargo pilot straightened painfully. "I miss complaining about Earth." Laughter rippled again, softer now. Karth looked at Lyra with something that no longer resembled arrogance. "In your environment," he said slowly, "you dominate." "In yours," she replied, "you would." He nodded once. "My conclusion was incomplete." "Yes, and yours." She considered, "Also incomplete." He blinked. "Explain." "I assumed you would not adjust." A faint grin tugged at his mouth. "I resent that. You should." The amphibious envoy clapped softly. Mutual incompleteness, how refreshing. Karth glanced around at the crowd that had once leaned toward his boasting. Now they watched both of them with equal measure. "You did not humiliate me," he said quietly. "You arrived pre-humiliated," she answered gently. "I merely accelerated realization." The cargo pilot choked on laughter. Karth surprised himself by laughing too. It was shorter than hers, but real. He extended his hand once more. "No demonstrations," he said. "No corrections," she replied. They shook. Around them, conversations resumed fully this time. Not about conquest, about gravity, about adaptation, about context. Karth retrieved his mug from the edge of the circle. He raised it slightly toward her. "To inconvenient persistence," he said. Lyra inclined her head. "To honest gravity." Karth lowered his mug, still feeling the aftershock of the gravity demonstration in his muscles. Lyra stood beside him, relaxed, almost casual, as though she had never been in a contest at all. Around them, the crowd dispersed slowly, some exchanging impressed murmurs, others shaking their heads in disbelief at what had just unfolded. The hum of the meridian spindle returned to its usual background level, punctuated by the soft mechanical whir of drones returning to idle. He turned to her, brushing sweat from his brow. "I didn't expect you to teach me anything. I thought this was going to be a public spectacle to embarrass me." Lyra's ears twitched in amusement. "You misunderstood the event. I do not teach to humiliate. I correct assumptions." He blinked, realizing the subtle humor in her phrasing, though it was dry, almost surgical. "Right. Assumptions." "Yes," she said, stepping closer, her long ears catching the light in a delicate curve. "Most people assume humans are fragile. You assumed I would overestimate myself. Both errors are forgivable once recognized." He grunted, shaking his head. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple once context is acknowledged," she said, voice soft, almost conspiratorial. "Observation before action. Adaptation before pride." Karth laughed, a genuine sound this time, and not a single servo in his armor humming to assist it. "I'm not used to being humbled, and I'm certainly not used to enjoying it." "You have learned then," Lyra said, and a small smirk touched her lips. "Even stubborn pride can adapt." He glanced around the concourse. The remaining spectators were chatting animatedly, comparing notes, retelling moments of the engagement with embellishment and humor. The air of tension had melted into fascination. The arrogance he had carried earlier now felt misplaced but instructive, like a lesson he had earned. "You changed my perspective," he admitted quietly, almost to himself. "On humans, on strength, on strategy." Lyra inclined her head slightly. Perspective requires patience to earn and willingness to notice. He straightened, drawing a breath and feeling his muscles finally relax. So it's not just physical. You've trained me in thinking. She allowed a short laugh, warm and subtle. I train thinking only because the body cannot lie. He considered that, thinking of the colony she had described, the storms, the gravity, the unforgiving terrain. Humans had thrived there not because of brute strength, but because adaptation required insight, and insight required calm observation. He had learned that now, firsthand. Even the arrogance that had propelled him into this demonstration had shifted, tempered by understanding. The cargo pilot appeared beside them, wiping her hands on her uniform. So, should I update my log? Humans are tougher than their armor makes them seem. She chuckled, gesturing at Karth's now darkened exosuit. Log it however you want, Karth said, smiling faintly. I'm not the story anymore. You are. Lyra's ears twitched again, a subtle acknowledgement. Recognition is a fair reward for effort. Karth's hand hovered for a moment before he extended it toward her again, but this time in true camaraderie rather than challenge. Partnership, he offered. She studied him briefly, her long ears angled slightly, listening to the cadence of his tone, the underlying sincerity. Partnership, she agreed. Her hand met his in a firm shake. The moment carried weight beyond the crowd, beyond gravity, beyond pride. In that single exchange, Karth felt an understanding pass between them, not of dominance or submission, not of victory or defeat, but of mutual recognition. A silent contract had been forged, a foundation built on respect, observation, and the courage to face discomfort without arrogance. A soft chime from the docking console announced a new shuttle docking sequence. The ambient lights shifted subtly, reflecting the artificial stars mapped into the ceiling's grid. Karth glanced upward. Another wave of humans or another challenge? Both, Lyra said with a hint of wry amusement. And perhaps an opportunity to practice humility again. He laughed, shaking his head, marveling at the ease of her confidence. You make it sound like fun. It is, she said, once you understand the rules. The crowd began to disperse fully, the spectators drifting back to their duties or recreational spaces, murmuring among themselves about the incredible demonstration. Karth and Lyra remained in the center of the concourse, the hum of the station returning to its normal cadence. A calm stillness settled over the moment, almost like a shared exhale between the two of them. Karth's hand fell to his side. I underestimated a lot of things today. You underestimated context first, Lyra said simply. And now, he asked, curiosity bright in his eyes. Now, she said, you understand. And that is more dangerous than any weapon you carry. A laugh escaped him again, unguarded. I'll take that as a compliment. She allowed the faintest smile, the corner of her lips curving just slightly, long ears swaying almost imperceptibly. It is. For the first time in a long while, Karth felt something that had nothing to do with armor, servos, or strength. Clarity. Insight. The realization that power did not only come from conquest or victory but from patience, observation, and the willingness to learn. He glanced at her, then at the concourse around them, alive with chatter, and finally back at her again. So, he said, what's next? Lyra's eyes sparkled faintly, humor dancing in the subtle curve of her lips. Next, we prepare. Observation never stops, even humans learn in Deathworlds. And I'll keep up. You will try, she said, and her tone held the faintest tease. He grinned. I like trying. Lyra inclined her head. Then the story continues. And for Karth, for the first time, he understood. Surviving was not just about strength. It was about understanding, adaptation, and the rare courage to let someone see your weaknesses, and to trust that they would respond with honesty, not destruction. A new wave of duty and quiet excitement began to stir in the concourse as he and Lyra moved toward the docking bay together, not as adversaries, but as allies, partners in the subtle art of surviving, learning, and perhaps, just perhaps, thriving. The demonstration, the lessons, and the laughter had reshaped more than pride. It had reshaped perspective itself, and he felt ready for whatever the stars might throw next.